Kevin is Jigsaw. The theory connects Home Alone's booby trap prodigy with Saw's mastermind of sadistic puzzles. Kevin builds brutal contraptions that burn, maim, and smash, which fans say is the early version of Jigsaw's morality-driven torture machines. His emotional detachment while watching Marv and Harry suffer reads less like self-defense and more like a test. Supporters also point to his use of surveillance, recordings, and manipulation, tactics Jigsaw relies on obsessively. Kevin's anger toward his neglectful family and his clear joy in orchestrating pain hint at a darker psyche beneath the cute sweater. They both share striking physical features: blonde, blue-eyed, calm under pressure. And then there's the thematic overlap. Both force others into life-threatening situations under the logic that it'll make them better. Even Saw's creators have joked about the idea, which fans treat as a twisted confirmation that Kevin didn't grow up, he evolved. Childs is the thing. Fans zero in on the final scene of John Carpenter's 1982 classic The Thing, where MacReady's breath clouds in the freezing air, but Childs' doesn't. In those sub-zero conditions, this is very suspicious. Supporters say the missing vapor is a clue. Childs isn't breathing because he's not human. Earlier, he disappears during the chaos, only to return with a flimsy excuse about chasing Blair and getting lost. That gap in time, paired with his sudden reappearance, fuels the theory that he was assimilated off-screen. The camera lingers just long enough to plant doubt, and the ambiguity in his story doesn't help. Some even argue that his calmness compared to MacReady's paranoia is unnatural, like he's mimicking human behavior, not feeling it. The theory hangs on those visual and behavioral cracks, treating the final stare down not as a relief, but a silent confirmation that MacReady is sitting across from a monster. By the way, if you guys like movie content like this, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Dr. Loomis is actually Sam Loomis. The theory says Sam Loomis from Psycho changed his entire life. After surviving Norman Bates, fans believe he retrained as a psychiatrist, took the name Dr. Samuel Loomis, and dedicated himself to stopping people like Norman before they kill again. They point out that Halloween's Dr. Loomis has a serious obsession with Michael Myers, almost like he's trying to fix something he failed to stop before. The timeline even works if you imagine Loomis finishing med school and winding up in Haddonfield. And then, there's the clever name reuse. Halloween straight up borrowed the name Samuel Loomis from Psycho. Plus, Janet Leigh from Psycho is the real-life mother of Jamie Lee Curtis, so this fan theory has some cinematic family drama baked in too. Freddy Krueger is Nancy Thompson's father. Fans point out that Freddy treats Nancy differently. He toys with her, fixates on her, and targets her mind more than her body. Then there's that glove hidden in the boiler room of her house stashed away by her mother, Marge. That detail alone has led to wild speculation that Marge had a secret connection with Freddy, maybe even an affair. Some believe Nancy was born from that relationship, and Marge kept it buried, literally and emotionally, after Freddy's death. Instead of random revenge, Freddy's attacks on Nancy could be punishment by bloodline, aimed at the daughter to lash out at the mother. And his psychological games? Those might be a twisted reflection of paternal obsession. Fans say this theory explains why he never treats any other character quite like her. The Blair Witch Project is about time travel. Fans say the evidence starts with that duffel bag found under a 100-year-old cabin's foundation, filled with the trio's tapes and gear. If the cabin predates them, how'd their stuff get buried beneath it? Theory supporters argue that the forest literally shifts them through time. They say Heather, Mike, and Josh get pulled back into the 1940s, right into the era of Rust and Parr, and that the house they end up in is actually his own, untouched by time because they're living in it. In Blair Witch 2016, some characters say they experienced 5 days while others only saw a few hours pass, so time clearly moves differently in the woods. The theory also explains why they never find their car, why no one finds them, and how the footage ends up buried years before it's even shot. Stu survived. Fans argue the TV to the face wasn't a guaranteed kill, especially since Matthew Lillard himself keeps saying Stu could have walked it off. He even joked it was just a TV, and honestly, in slasher terms, that's barely a scratch. Then there's his blink and you'll miss it cameo in Scream 2, hanging out in a frat party scene like a ghost in plain sight. That wasn't random. Early drafts of Scream 3 had Stu pulling strings from prison, a plan scrapped for tone reasons, not plausibility. In Scream 6, Mindy drops a line. If you believe he's dead, that hits like a wink, keeping the theory on life support. And in the creepy Ghostface shrine, relics from every killer show up except Stu's. No sweater, no mask, nothing. Fans say it's because he's not dead. No relic, no closure. The Sawyer family were cops assigned to the Ed Gein case. According to this theory, the Twisted family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre were law enforcement officers who investigated Ed Gein and went fully off the rails. Fans pushing this idea say the family's obsession with skin, bones, and human trophies mirrors Gein's crimes too closely to be coincidence. The theory claims that after seeing what Gein did, they became fascinated, then corrupted, eventually mimicking his behavior and isolating themselves to carry it out. Some versions suggest they covered up evidence or stole items from the case to start their own collection. Even though the films never confirm it, this theory views the clan's structure, with figures like Drayton acting like an authority and the families to evade detection for years, as leftovers of a system they once worked inside. The Sawyers are not just a group of hillbilly killers, but a group of ex-cops who saw evil and decided to become it. Michael Myers is a tethered. Fans say his blank stare, stiff movements, and total silence line up perfectly with the underground doppelgangers from Us. Like the tethered, he watches, follows, and then strikes with precision. His boiler suit and pale, emotionless mask give off the same eerie uniformity as the red jumpsuits and blank expressions seen in Jordan Peele's film. Some believe the real Michael was replaced by his tethered counterpart back in 1963, and that what we've seen since is the clone. The theory gets bolder with details. Halloween Resurrection features tunnels under the Myers house, exactly the kind of hidden space where the tethered are raised. And then there's the Rabbit in Red matchbook, which theorists link to the caged rabbits in Us. Supporters say these aren't coincidences. They're breadcrumbs connecting two horrors born underground. Jack Torrance is a subject of MK Ultra. Fans say The Shining is actually a coded depiction of CIA mind control. The big clue: a ski poster in the background that says Monarch, which theorists link to Project Monarch, a rumored MK Ultra subprogram. They argue that placing that word was Kubrick's way of signaling Jack's mental breakdown as engineered. The Overlook itself is treated like a psychological lab. Jack's isolation, his hallucinations, the warped layout of the hotel, it all mimics the techniques of experimental mind fracturing. Time loops, voices, and identity erosion are symptoms. Supporters say the hotel's structure, shifting reality, and visual symmetry all serve a secondary function: breaking Jack's will. His descent into madness isn't possession, but rather programming. The theory frames Jack as a test subject trapped in a human experiment hidden behind the wallpaper. Ash had a mental breakdown. Fans argue Evil Dead 2 shows Ash's mind unraveling right on screen. The opening recap drops characters like Cheryl and Shelley entirely, which they take as his brain rewriting the past to cope with trauma. Objects start laughing, the deer head, the lamp, the books, and then Ash joins in, staring straight into the camera, grinning like someone who's lost control. His reflection even lunges at him, which the theory treats as a literal fight with his fractured self. Critics link this selective forgetting to repression, suggesting he's blocking out what he can't handle. The movie's tone also shifts from horror to surreal black comedy, implying we're seeing more of his distorted perspective. Add in killing Linda and his own possession, and the breakdown theory feels disturbingly plausible. Laurie Strode caused Michael's escape. Fans argue the bus crash in Halloween 2018 was all Laurie's doing. The movie never shows how the crash actually happens, leaving the door wide open for suspicion. Right after it's reported, Laurie sees the news and barely reacts, like she already knew it was coming. That cold reaction has fueled the theory that she either set the crash up herself or arranged for it somehow. Then she shows up to a restaurant, clearly rattled and drinking, and theory fans say that's not fear, it's guilt. The idea is that after 40 years of waiting, training, and arming herself to the teeth, Laurie finally snapped and decided to force the showdown on her own terms. They say she released the monster so she could kill it. Pelle killed Danny's family in Midsommar. Theory supporters think the Danny sister's murder-suicide was staged to isolate Danny and pull her into the Harga. The setup is suspicious. Terry tapes a hose to her mouth, floods the house with carbon monoxide, and kills their parents too, all in one go. But Terry's body looks violently disturbed while the parents lie peacefully, like they were drugged. Then there's Pelle, oddly invested in Danny before anything happens. He remembers her birthday, draws her, and casually nudges Christian into inviting her on the trip. Inside her parents' bedroom, viewers spotted yellow flowers, matching Harga's rituals and crowns, planted like visual foreshadowing. Critics say that hints at a setup meant to symbolically link her to Harga before she ever arrives. Pelle seems almost relieved when she joins them, like everything went to plan. The theory says Dani not only lost her family, but she was freed from them. Casey is a powerful empath. Fans say her survival in Split is because she senses and connects with Kevin's alters on a deep, almost super powerful level. The film states clearly that Kevin has empathy for one person, Casey, and that line sparked the whole theory. She talks her way out and she steers the personalities, especially Hedwig, through quiet emotional influence. She even convinces Claire or Marcia to pee themselves to avoid worse punishment, showing her ability to read and respond under pressure. Her trauma is seen as the thing that sharpens her emotional intuition. Instead of panicking, she stays calm, reacts strategically, and forms bonds that subtly shift control. That's what sets her apart. Her attunement, her stillness, her presence, it's all framed like someone whose power isn't physical, but emotional. After all, this is the unbreakable universe, and superpowers are the norm. Balloons hold the spirits of children. Fans believe the red balloons Pennywise uses are vessels. The theory says each balloon represents a soul taken by Pennywise, tied directly to the deadlights. The floating decorations are actually manifestations of the kids who now float in his realm. The phrase, "we all float down here," is a literal, linking the floating balloons to the trapped spirits of his victims. Pennywise never shows up without those balloons nearby, and they always appear just before or after a child vanishes. Supporters say the balloons don't float randomly, they drift, like echoes of the kids swallowed by the deadlights. And in multiple scenes, balloons appear where no one else should be, almost like ghosts marking where a life was taken. Pamela Voorhees, resurrected Jason. Fans argue her killing spree was ritual. In Jason Goes to Hell, it's revealed Pamela had access to the Necronomicon, tying her to actual black magic. That detail reframes everything. Her murders in the first Friday the 13th are methodical, like sacrifices, poisoning water, setting fires, and killing counselors all start to look like ritual prep, not chaos. Some even say she was completing a spell to bring Jason back. When Jason later returns with supernatural stamina and regenerative powers, it backs the idea that his resurrection was magical, not random. The theory says Jason was summoned. Pamela was a practitioner channeling ancient forces to restore her son. Kurt is actually a villain. This cabin in the woods theory claims Kurt was in on the entire operation. He's the one who pushed the trip in the first place, claiming it was his cousin's cabin, even though Marty later questions if that cousin even exists. Then there's the gas station stop, where Kurt throws money to move things along, keeping the group from asking questions. Down in the basement, he grabs 2 cursed objects, not just one, which fans say is a clue he knows exactly what's going on. During the creepy pheromone moment, he's the one who takes Jules outside to do what the ritual needs, triggering the first death. And that ravine jump, he speeds toward it like he knows what's waiting and has to hit it full force to seal the deal. Sarah is the killer. Fans argue the descent hides a psychological twist behind its monster movie setup. From the start, Sarah's shown hallucinating, seeing her daughter Jessica, dreaming she's in a hospital, and snapping back into the cave. She's also on medication at the cabin but doesn't take it into the caves, which supporters say foreshadows a break from reality. The infamous cake scene near the end, where the birthday cake's candles shift from 5 to 6, is read as symbolic of Sarah herself becoming the 6th extinguished life. Her choices, euthanizing Beth and abandoning Juno after learning about the affair, fit a pattern of personal rage rather than survival instinct. Combined with the film's constant descent imagery and distorted reality cues, proponents argue the crawlers may be hallucinations masking Sarah's violence, turning her into the real predator in the dark. Event Horizon and Hellraiser share a universe. Fans point out that Dr. Weir, after returning from the Hell dimension, speaks the line, "I have such wonderful things to show you," echoing the infamous Cenobite promise. The ship's Latin warning, Libere te tutemet ex inferis, literally invokes hell, not metaphorically, but as a real place. The filmmakers even admitted they were inspired by the puzzle box in Hellraiser, designing the gravity drive to resemble a shifting mechanical gateway to torment. Both films explore the same theme, human obsession unlocking cosmic suffering. In Hellraiser, it's the box. In Event Horizon, it's the drive. The mutilated bodies, psychic torture, and obsession with pain as transcendence appear in both. The theory argues these aren't just homages, they're signals. Event Horizon is what happens when someone builds a lament configuration on a spaceship. The homeless man in The Exorcist is a demon spy. Fans believe the figure who appears near Father Karras is a planted observer for Pazuzu. The theory centers on a specific phrase, "You're next." The homeless man says it early in the film, and later Karras hears the same line during a moment of spiritual collapse. Supporters argue this is actually surveillance. The Exorcist wiki even flags him as a possible demonic agent, with some suggesting he's a minion meant to track and torment Karras outside the possessed girl's room. In one version of the theory, the man dies off-screen, which fans interpret as the demon discarding its disguise. His sudden absence, paired with his eerie line echoing back at Karras, is taken as proof that he was just another mask used by the evil closing in. Michael Myers is the spirit of Samhain. Fans say the proof starts with Halloween 2, where Michael writes Samhain in blood on a school chalkboard. Given he's been locked up since childhood, how does he know ancient Celtic terms? The theory argues it's instinct from something supernatural inside him. Samhain marks the thinning of the veil between life and death, and Michael's unkillable nature fits that exact lore. Later films bring in the Thorn cult, tying him to druidic rituals linked to Samhain, making his murders part of an ancient sacrificial pattern. In the novelizations, Michael dreams of a Celtic boy named Enda, cursed during Samhain for killing his family, implying Michael is either possessed by or reincarnated from that same spirit. His blank stare, the inhuman silence, the unnatural return. Supporters say it's the spirit of Samhain walking. Hostel is a sequel to Saw. Fans point to a portrait in Hostel Part 2 that looks eerily like Amanda Young, Jigsaw's protege, and say it's more than a coincidence. The theory claims Amanda survived, took over Jigsaw's legacy, and founded elite hunting as a darker evolution of the tests, turning moral judgment into a business for the ultra-rich. The two franchises share disturbing DNA, pain-based punishment, elaborate traps, and twisted logic behind who deserves to suffer. Saw is about earning survival through lessons. Hostel skips the lecture and monetizes cruelty. Both were released by Lionsgate, giving fans ammo to argue there's room for an intentional crossover. The tone, visuals, and even music cues in Hostel nod toward the Saw universe. Supporters say Hostel is what happens when someone scales the world of Jigsaw. Leatherface is a woman. Fans pushing this theory focus on the character's unsettling use of gender-coded masks, especially the pretty woman and old lady faces paired with wigs, makeup, and traditionally feminine attire. During the dinner scene in the original film, Leatherface presents almost like a housewife figure, nervously serving food in a dress and lipstick. Supporters argue this is actually a performance. Some versions of the theory cite the scrapped concept from the 2017 prequel, where Jedediah was raised as a girl, forced into feminine clothing by a family that wanted a daughter. While never canonized, that abandoned idea feeds speculation that Leatherface's identity is rooted in forced gender confusion or fluidity. The theory leans on repeated visual cues and interpretive readings of Leatherface as someone who literally wears personas. The Collector is a failed Jigsaw protege. Fans point to the fact that The Collector was originally pitched as a Saw prequel, suggesting a direct link between the two universes. Like Jigsaw, The Collector builds elaborate, sadistic traps, but instead of teaching lessons, he uses them for torture and chaos. Supporters argue that this shift in purpose fits a narrative where he may have failed Jigsaw's moral tests, rejected the lesson aspect, and kept the hardware. The second film even includes nods to trap makers like Amanda Young, which some interpret as inspiration or rivalry. The confined settings, puzzle-like death traps, and structured setups all echo Jigsaw's blueprint, just without the ideology. Meta clues, like Facebook posts and articles, back up that this was more than coincidence. The theory frames the Collector not as a copycat, but as what happens when someone takes Jigsaw's tools and ditches the rules. Gizmo and Grogu are the same species. Fans say the resemblance goes way beyond coincidence, pointing straight to Gremlins director Joe Dante, who claimed Grogu was shamelessly copied from Gizmo. Both have giant ears, round eyes, tiny bodies, and that mix of innocence with dangerous potential. Gizmo might turn into a chaotic nightmare if mishandled, while Grogu can lift a giant beast with his mind. They both sit at the exact intersection of adorable and terrifying if provoked. Their visual proportions match almost perfectly, and fans argue those details suggest a shared origin. Even though Grogu's skin is green and Gizmo's covered in fur, the structure beneath feels eerily familiar. The theory is about function, archetype, and that uncanny sense that these two characters are part of the same mysterious lineage. The creator of Paranormal Activity made a deal with the devil. That's what some fans say after looking at how a $15,000 indie film turned into a $190 million global phenomenon. The theory goes that Pelle made a pact They point to the demon Toby acting like it knows it's being filmed, messing with cameras, lights, and electronics, as if it's performing for an unseen audience. Scenes often seem crafted more to terrify viewers than the characters, like the entity is using the film itself to spread fear. Supporters think that's the trade. Pelle would show the world this demon's power, and in return, he'd get overnight success. It's the classic Faust story, just with handheld cameras and night vision. They say the scares work too well to be coincidence. If you enjoyed this, I post movie content a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.